Welcome, everybody. Well, this isn't going to be your normal introduction, but I'm Jukebox Ginger from the Stardom podcast. About 2 months ago, we did this show called Clash of the Casters. Vinnie just jumped on here. Vinnie, how you doing, man?
How's it going? Thanks for
There
having
he
me.
is.
Good. You're a little late, but it's okay.
I'm on Irish time. Sorry, man.
So a group of us podcast on, and we have a guest on that talks about specific topics on their shows. And this one is going to be about UFOs, and I have a wonderful guest tonight. So I'm going to start out with you, Cristina Gomez. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I am doing really well, staying hydrated and trying to stay awake. Honestly.
Yeah, and you're like 2 hours behind me, so it's not even that late.
I know, but like, I just don't sleep. I have so much work to do that I just don't get enough hours. So I have to wear a lot of makeup under my eyes to cover all the dark circles to look presentable,
I wear a lot of makeup too. It's fine.
I'm just dark.
Roman, how are you?
I'm Roman GOODBEER from the Mr. GOODBEER podcast. Here to hang out with the Clash of the Posters, man. I'm super excited to talk about alien shit. I love this stuff. UFOs, the whole works. Let's do it, man. I'm so in. Let's fucking do it.
Let's do it. Baish, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Baish from the ROC. That's a turn of the critics. And I'm not a big believer in this stuff, but my wife loves it. So,
it's okay. Good. Well, maybe we'll.
I'm here to soak it up.
Good. Well, you're always allowed to, ask questions and argue what we say. It's fine. You're allowed to have opinions. Vinnie, how you doing, man?
How's it going, Dylan? How's the story, man? I'm Vinnie Green. I've been on your show a couple of times. MDK Productions, Blood Wolf Independent Publishing. You know me. I'm kind of like old furniture at this stage. I just love aliens. I've been fascinated since I was a kid. Ever since the X-Files, I think pretty much for most people back in the 90s, the X-Files sparked interest in everybody and asking the questions and is the truth out there? We all want to know what the truth was. So
I want to believe.
I want to believe. Yeah. So I just think back in the day, being a 90s kid, from Ireland, I think my first exposure for UFOs, this kind of thing, would have to be with the X-Files. And ever since then, I've been fascinated,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Cristina, I found you on YouTube. I believe probably because you're the radio show that you are through is through Kansas City. So I don't know if that's how I found you or whatnot. Then I started listening to some of your stuff because I recognized some of the guests that you had on, and I was really intrigued. So I first want to start out by saying, what got you into this, shifting the paradigm? Why are you so intrigued by it?
My father is the reason to why I'm here. He was a big fan of the TV show called The Twilight Zone. Have any of you guys heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Well, it is fantastic, and it covers so many topics that fall under the fringe. And when you're very young, right, you have so many questions, and your parents kind of get tired. They're like, why do you keep asking why? And that curiosity should never change as you get older. But for the most part, the older you get, you tend to believe that I know everything. I don't need to ask questions. Everything that I see, I know is true. And that isn't always the case. And I think having that kind of curiosity, knowing that there are so many things that we simply don't know about yet, I think adds a lot of spice to our life. Like if we're looking at a nice curry dish, right? You got to add all the spices to make it delicious. Otherwise, it's just not very good. But
Right.
Overall, I'm incredibly new to this topic. Only been doing it for getting involved for about a year. And, I think that for the most part, the reason to why I do this is because when I was joining the field, doing it, on camera, I noticed that there weren't a lot of people that I could relate to. There are very few females, there's very few young people, and there's very few Latin Americans as well. And even though I don't really feel comfortable being on camera and talking, it's not my cup of tea, I know that there are other people that have the exact same questions that I do, or other people that say, hey, I can relate to this person. Because even though that there are so many podcasters that cover this topic and so many other topics, there's always going to be one that you just kind of gravitate towards a little bit more than the other. And that's a lot of the times related to in the sense that somehow they have certain characteristics that you have or that you want to have, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I think that's a big reason to why I'm doing this for about a year now. I have a really big passion for the topic, and what I bring is, I don't try to bring my bias or my opinions on the cases that I cover or the people that I speak to. I think it's very important to just find as much information that I can and provide it to the public to allow them to come up with their own conclusions on the topic. So I think there's a lot more to come with this. There's still so much that I don't know. And I really just want to get the young people involved, get them excited about all of these different types of possibilities, such as, are we being visited? Well, some people say yes, some people say no. I think that just opening your mind to the possibility makes life that much more interesting.
That
Right.
100%. I agree. And you know, it's kind of like when you get into spiritualism and or stuff like that, go if they exist or not. You know, it's definitely up in the air depending on your experiences or how you were raised on the topic. So bringing light to it to people is wonderful. So have you ever had any personal experiences or have had family members that have told you stories that like intrigued you as well on this?
I have never spoken to any family members that have had any encounters. To be honest, my family does not even know that I talk about this topic to this extent. I keep it very well. I guess the reason is, when I first entered college, I moved far away from home and I wanted to have this conversation for real. But as soon as I had entered campus and I was like, hey, so what do you think about this? I mean, is it possible? Do you know anything about it? They're like, hold on, Christina, hold up. No. We need to be under some kind of substance to have this conversation. Like, I can't do this right here at 8 a.m., like in the middle of the hallway to go to class. Like, no way. And I'm
What
thinking,
time is it for you, Vinny? Just curious.
Oh, it's like after 12 midnight.
Okay. All right, keep going.
It's the witching hour. It's the witching hour.
nice.
Nice.
So I wanted to have this conversation for real with people, but ever since the UAP preliminary report came out in June, released by the Pentagon, that was when the mainstream media was covering this. To the build up to the report, when the report dropped, the media coverage stopped talking about this topic, and
Okay,
I
well-
found that very interesting because for several months until June, people were having conversations, there were panels, there were debates on the mainstream media. And I think that's what really caught a
Do
lot
you
of
think that
people's
was okay because
attention.
they didn't say UFO? It's UAP because they changed the acronym. Do you think that's what made it more acceptable?
Well, the term UAP has been used since the 60s, but it seems that now it's becoming popular once again. But I
Right.
think that no matter what term that you use, it still means the same thing. But if we
Right.
look at the term UFO, a lot of people would consider the X-Files. It's a very loaded term, and you immediately think aliens. But
Right.
in reality, it means unidentified flying object. That can be anything. You
That
can
could be just something
misidentify
rocking
an air. You can
what a meteor, the whole works. Like that covers every base.
Exactly. That kind of falls under the category until you find the right information to go ahead and back up what you saw. Until then, it is a UFO. UAP is the exact same thing.
Right.
So I feel that after the mainstream media had covered this topic, people are really beginning to have their eyes open just to the mere possibility that either we are not alone in the universe or that the military does know more than the public. And I feel, or the government, excuse me. So I just think that this topic is really important, and we're not in, we're not meant to remain on Earth for the rest of eternity. At some
Right.
point, we are going to travel the stars. And now we know with science since the 90s that there are other exoplanets. There is life, there is microbial life out there.
Right.
Now it's just getting out there ourselves and seeing it with our own eyes. But if we don't know the basic knowledge of the history of UFOs or the spiritual aspect or the scientific aspect, we simply can't go anywhere.
Can I
Right.
ask you a question, Christina?
please.
I was just wondering, do you know Bob Lazar and
Not
his story?
personally, but I
But
know his story.
do you think there's any truth to that, or like with Area 51 and advanced technologies, and do you think that there is some sort of crashed alien craft being held by the US military at the moment, or US government?
So I have covered the topic of Bob Lazar on my channel. Actually, it turned out to be 2 episodes because there was so much information, and I'm very open-minded to the possibility, but I am still on the fence. There is a lot of information that supports this claim, and there's a lot of information that goes against it, and even stating that he is merely a criminal and a liar. So because I wasn't there, because I haven't spoken to him personally, it is very difficult to make my own conclusions, and even if I did, I don't think I would share them, at least with my audience, because I'm all about giving all the information without contaminating the data with my bias and my opinion. And on the second show that I did about Bob Lazar, I was able to have Richard Dolan on, and that was fascinating because you're having Jimmy Church that's kind of saying, I was a believer and now I'm not. And then you're having Richard Dolan, who's researched the topic extensively and does believe that what Bob Lazar, at least for the most part, was what's true and what he was saying. So I think it was very, very interesting to hear both pieces to his story.
Right. And I want to say, so Anthony just chimed in and said be joining in. So thank you for joining in, Anthony. So Christina, on the topic, and I guess since we're kind of talking about government and UFOs right now, UAPs, do you think, and this is my opinion, that maybe the government has had contact with several species, and maybe there's a reason why they're holding back information? Has there been anything in your research that might lean towards that being the case?
One example of this is President Eisenhower. Now we have his great-great-granddaughter, I believe, I think it's several generations, who states that President Eisenhower, was in contact with extraterrestrials. There was a whole contract signed, and that's why there are these types of abductions and cattle mutilations for a trade for advanced technology. Is that the case? Well, there hasn't been a proof of that contract that was signed by the president. It's merely, I guess, very conspiratorial for the most part. But that is, I guess, the first thing that kind of comes to mind to your question, just because there's a lot more information about President Eisenhower being involved, but also interested in UFOs. And then you also have Ronald Reagan as well. You even have Donald Trump and Kennedy, who have all just kind of shown an interest in the possibility of extraterrestrials. But I do believe this. Again, no, I mean it's anecdotal. There isn't really any documentation aside from the MJ12 documents. Have you heard of those?
The Magic 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think is a Project Blue Book and stuff like that.
It's not really, I mean, I guess there could be a slight correlation, but it's not really related to Project Blue Book. They are 2 separate, I guess, entities in a sense. But MJ12, excuse me?
Proven, whereas the MJ12 is not. Like, there's no proof for the Majestic 12 where Project Blue Book is official. You know what I mean? That's the difference between a UFO and a UAP. Phenomena or an object. You know what I mean? The object, because it's there and you can see it in the paper's proof. But the phenomena is like objective, and it's something that's out there that could be there. Majestic
like
12,
the Tic Tacs. No,
Right.
the Tic Tac UFOs.
Well, exactly.
Go ahead, Christina.
Majestic 12, the MJ12 documents are not verified. We've had some really famous ufologists, such as Stanton Friedman, who had done extensive research on the documents and believe that some of them were authentic while others were practically fraudulent. So I think with this topic, you are really walking in muddy waters. You simply do not know what is truth and what is not. And I think that's why it's very important that people make up their own minds to their own discretion on the information that they find, because it's hard to convince someone if you don't have the information, or that if you have it and it ends up being proven as fake.
Right. And you know, like the picture behind Roman there, the grays. So, you know, there's a couple of species of race of aliens that are most popularly talked about. And I think what you got, the Greys and the Reptilians are probably the ones that pop up
Right.
most in a lot of your research.
The Greys are an interesting entity, and I did do a show just on the Greys. And from the anecdotal accounts that I came across, the anecdotal witness testimonies, is that it's believed by many that have encountered these entities that they are not just biological, but they're almost robotic in a sense. There's also different types of grays. You have tall ones and you have short ones. You even have different colors. Some come in beige, brown, and gray. I found it really, really interesting. And it seems, again, from some of these anecdotal witness testimonies, that grays work for other races. So you have them for the reptilians, the Nordics, and I think the mantis as well. And again, these are just anecdotal accounts. We simply do not know if this is truly the case, but it does open the doors of that's very interesting to believe that you have these kind of fleshy looking beings that are half biological and half robotic. Could it be that in our future that we can achieve that same technology? Well, the answer is yes. Look at the robot Sophia. That's doing pretty fantastic to the point where I wouldn't say growing a consciousness, but she now is able to feel this sense of protection for her family, for her husband, and for her
She has
kids.
citizenship somewhere, doesn't she?
She does in Saudi Arabia.
Legitimate. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty unbelievable, and I think that that's kind of the direction that us as a human species will get to be able to create technology such as people have seen with the Greys.
Right. And they're so those are like coming from at least like from your research, they're probably not from here, as the reptilians tend to live in like the volcanoes, in our cave systems, and they travel between here and wherever. But they're mostly here underground, correct? Or am I mistaken?
I'm not too familiar with where they reside when it comes to Earth, but Greys could very well be biological clones with artificial intelligence or act like insects with a merged mind, like mindless drones doing their orders. So I don't think
Ender's
it really
Game?
matters
Fucking
where
Ender's
they
Game?
would. So I don't think it would
I'm
really
all for
matter
that.
where
I'm
they
sorry.
would reside. But there is one story by Betty and Barney Hill when they were under regression. This is one of the most famous stories, right? The subduction story. But under regression, it was believed that these Greys are part of the planet Zeta Reticuli. And she drew this whole document, this
Right. Yeah.
you
She
know,
drew the
whole
star map
star
shit, yeah.
map exactly
Mhm.
of where she thought
Yep.
that they were from, and even came up with the name Zeta Reticuli. That name had never come about until she had brought it up. So that's where a lot of people think these Greys are from, but if they are just biological clones, I guess they could be on any planet or any spacecraft, right? Because they're just created, they're not born.
Yeah. As far as the reptilians, though, do you think that they're more like, at least most documentation has been here on Earth, not
longer than
abducted?
us?
Subterrestrial creatures, maybe more
Well,
so
They've
than
been here longer than
extraterrestrial.
us.
There
Yeah.
are many researchers out there with the opinion that there are a number of alien outposts deep under the ocean, which would be a logical thing.
Right.
Yeah. USOs are crazy. That's another one. Things
Yeah,
that come in and out of the ocean. Like if you look at the videos of that stuff, that is insane to see. Like,
and then one there's a story of somebody who like actually infiltrated a cave system and found a bunch of reptilians and actually got shot.
By the reptilians.
Is that the Dulce
yes.
base?
Yes. I saw something on, I think it was a documentation on Netflix, and I know that it's kind of hard to really verify anything that's on there, But yes, the Dulce base, where they like actually infiltrated a cave and found the reptilian species, and like they actually had fire. There was weapons fired.
It was just the one dude though that came out, right? What
Yeah,
was
Phil
that man's name?
Schneider.
Yes,
That's
Phil
a
Schneider. That's
pretty
exactly right.
fascinating story. And
Mhm.
it's one that really makes you question, did that really happen? Because
Right.
you're only having, I think, what, one or two people come out stating that did happen. And apparently, based off of Phil Schneider's testimonies, that about 80 scientists died at the Dulce base in New Mexico, where you have multiple layers under this mountain that kind of test people and test aliens. And I had a researcher called Norio Hayakawa on my show who went really deep on the story. And I just think that I think it's a, if you're interested in the topic, it is a cool one to look into, but it really makes you question, like, that's
Not a happy
pretty
ending either, though.
extreme.
It's
It's not
really
a
not a
happy
happy
ending. I
ending.
mean, I think it's after 2 years, Phil Schneider had talked out about the topic after what
Right.
happened at the Dulce base, because he was a security guard, I believe. He allegedly committed suicide not too long
Allegedly.
after.
And that's a horrible scene on its own. I have seen
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
and read a lot about that one. And like, yeah.
Do you think it was the reptile seeking revenge?
Oh my God, could it have been?
You know what I'm saying?
It's hard. It's so hard to tell because there's also been a lot where they come off as very like emotional and romantic towards, like, in a lot of the instances where people talk about them, they're actually very nice people or a race. There's very few like negative situations.
Interesting. I haven't looked too deep into the alleged accounts of reptilians, so I'm not too familiar with it. But there are quite a few cases where people have had encounters with them. Some of them, like you said, kind of being more warm, I guess, in a sense, and then some of them where it's very terrifying. Look, I mean, if I was in that situation, I would be kind of scared of like a giant lizard, like a ginormous lizard. I'll be like, whoa, I'm not ready to have this encounter.
Right. And then, there's all sorts of other ones that aren't talked about as much. Like, I know you've talked about the jinn and shadow people and stuff like that. And the shadow people, I think, is a fantastic. At least the story behind them. What are they made of? Just matter out of space? Do they come from somewhere specific? And you hear a lot of like ghost campfire stories about people who have witnessed the shadow people. I mean, did you do a lot of research for them because I'm pretty sure you talked about them on one of your episodes.
I did. For all of my shows, I do countless hours of research. When it came to the shadow people, that one actually hit home for me because I had a really close friend who allegedly had an encounter with one, and I went into detail on that on my show. And it was really interesting because she wasn't really one to believe in anything supernatural, anything at all, anything that was outside of the realms of science. She did not believe it. I mean, her father was a neurosurgeon, so just kind of having that kind of very strict mentality. For years, she was tortured by this, shadow person from a very, very young age until her late teen years, to my knowledge, to the point where her mother, who was kind of more of a spiritualist, kind of like an eclectic spiritualist, contacted, I don't know what you would call them, but like someone who does rituals, but like it's not a witch, but like someone who does these kinds of
Like a
rituals.
medium.
Kind of, but not. And pretty much
Witch doctor.
I don't think so. I'm not sure. But when my friend had tried to enter this woman's house, she literally couldn't. She wasn't able to walk through that door. And so apparently a ritual had to be done outside of the house with singing bowls or om bowls and some sage, I believe. And it turns out, from the story that I heard from the mother and from the ritualist, had both told me personally that she was crying, she was screaming, saying, please stop, like, this hurts, this burns, when sound shouldn't, right? Especially when it's coming from singing bowls, that should not happen. And she ended up passing out from the pain, and then she woke up and didn't remember anything. So that story, I was like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. So I went ahead and did my research on it. This is a pretty common factor for a lot of people that have these kinds of parasites or ones that deal with shadow people or even jinn. I don't think that they're the same, jinn and shadow people, but they're probably similar. And if you look through the Quran, right, jinn comes up multiple times. So I think that learning about what we would consider folklore or myths, even if they might sound extreme, all of them can teach us something about ourselves, either if we believe them or not.
Right.
Just
So
have an open mind.
yes.
But can I ask about Area 51, Dylan? If that's good.
Yeah, go ahead, because I believe she actually is pretty restricted on her time. So if you guys have questions, please.
Oh no, I was just curious about after the incident in Roswell, New Mexico, and they said that like after that there was a craft moved to like was it 2 different places? One was Area 51 and one was another air base or something. And then
Right,
after
Patterson
that,
Air Force Base.
yeah, and I was wondering like it wasn't after that like Project Blue Book was formed and all these things, and like you look at the advancements of human technology from the 50s and 60s onwards after what the reported Roswell incident. That you think that maybe there was an alien craft taken from that site, and due to that alien craft being taken to an American airbase or whatever, researchers retroactively looked at the technology and used it to help advance us as a spacefaring species, because we went to the moon like 15, 20 years later.
So, Vinny, I do apologize. What's your question?
No, I'm.
You got a cool story, bro.
We're all waiting
Cool
for it.
story.
Don't worry.
No, I mean, like, do you think that the Roswell incident occurred, and do you think that the advancement in technology, in human technology, from the 50s and 60s onwards, were anything to do with the Roswell, New Mexico reported incident of a UFO crashing?
So, Roswell, New Mexico is very interesting. Happened in 1947. A lot of UFO sightings happened in 1947 into the 1950s. You had multiple UFO crashes allegedly happen 1947, 48, 49, 50 as well. So you're getting this, like, if you're looking at the data from these, again, anecdotal accounts, we simply do not know if these are true stories.
Right.
But if we look at the data that has been provided, that you can find through books, through researchers, online, etc., there are countless witnesses that have stated that the craft that they saw ended up being collected by military vehicles, trucks, the tow trucks, cars, things like that. And it was taken somewhere. Then you have other witnesses that live near, well, I guess not really that close to Area 51, but I guess like somewhat close because there's nothing there, right? And Patterson Air Force Base, that they saw trucks with this, I guess, object with a tarp over it driving into these Air Force bases. So based off of that, it makes you question, what the heck are they carrying? Is it alien technology? That would be exciting. Would it not? Would that not be exciting? You'd want to walk into there. You would say, hey, look, I have this fake pass. Can I come in and look at this craft? But is it possible? I think it could be. Philip J. Corso, before he passed away, released the book The Day After Roswell, where he gave multiple accounts of reverse engineering of alien technology. And I do recommend that book, Vinny, if you really are interested in it, because you are having people talk out about it, such as Bob Lazar and some other scientists that, prefer to use pseudonames. But I think that the more people that talk out about this, either with a fake identity or a real one, it helps us as humanity understand that the technology that we have today, right here in 2022, could be so much better if we just knew the basic knowledge, if we just had the basic understanding of what the heck is going on.
Right. So, in my opinion, I feel like if the government came out 100% of what they knew, it could potentially start riots. Or, I mean, if there's species out there that are more dominant than us, and they were to come out and tell us about it, I mean, could that not freak a lot of people out?
It can, but I think the biggest reason to why they don't do that is because for 70 plus years, they stated that We don't know anything about it. Our hands are in the air. They're clean. We don't know anything about the UFO topic. We don't care about the UFO topic. And if they were to come out now and state, actually, we've had our fingers in it for decades, that would change people's mentality on who they should trust. So I feel like it's kind of this mind game more than just having people panic about the situation.
Right.
From my understanding, from the research that I have done so far, it seems that that explanation would be more plausible of if they just came out now and stated we lied. That would make a lot of people upset, and then that would create riots, not because of the information, but because of that they found out that they have been lied to.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Baish, do you have anything? You've been pretty quiet, man. Any questions, Mr. Non-believer over here?
It's not unbelievable. It's a lot of stuff going on here. Well, this maybe, this person maybe had an experience. I believe this could be all in people's heads. I don't think people would lose their shit if they found out there was aliens. For me, the government's like sleight of hand. It's like, look at this, so you don't look at this. So hey, there's aliens, but we're gonna do this to you over here. Yeah. It's a pickpocket thing.
All right. What were you gonna say? Yeah.
In today's world, in 2022, I have to think about it. I believe that you are correct. If we were to find out now that there are extraterrestrials, that maybe that we're even being visited by aliens, it wouldn't be a shock. And I think that the reason is because people from, let's say, the 80s onward grew up with television, with movies, Star Trek, Star Wars, Predator, Alien, and all these other ones.
Yeah.
I've encountered some cartoons recently, some children cartoons that bring up the topic of aliens as an episode or even as a theme for small children. And I think that it's very possible that maybe we're getting soft drip disclosure, trying to prime people to kind of be open-minded to the possibility. You even have the newer TV show Debris, The Expanse, Resident Alien, which is the first season was really funny. I really enjoyed it. But
what's that?
Resident Alien, it's kind of a more comedy, I wouldn't say it's a sitcom, but like a comedy TV show about an alien that needs to destroy the Earth. He takes a human form and he ends up getting human emotions and starts to like certain people on Earth and can no longer accomplish his mission of destroying the entire planet.
Okay.
Is that
like Invader Zim?
Yes, Invader Zim's fantastic. I loved that cartoon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Roman, you got any questions?
I got an idea for you. Okay, so let's just say that we as a people are a product of a organic bomb that an alien race dropped on this planet to terraform it, and we're just part of a process, and we're going to die off, and we're going to make this planet perfect for them. Would you agree that that's a possibility?
Well, we do that as a human species,
exactly.
Right? We're trying to do that with Mars.
Part of a plan already from something else to come and take over afterwards. But I feel like
it's very possible, but with life comes death, right? With creation comes destruction. So even if that might be the cycle, to us it's just a regular cycle of life, whether we were terraformed or whether that there was a bomb dropped to terraform the planet or not. In our eyes, as human eyes, we're just living our life until we die, and then what happens in the future, to many people's mentality, has nothing to do with us. But it is a plan. I mean, I don't know. I do keep my mind open, and I wonder about the Fermi paradox. You know, are we in quarantine? That's what I wonder.
Yeah.
Right. So as far as us like trying to make, almost like a community on Mars or on the moon, do you think that's something we're going to reach in the near future?
Well, you do have Elon Musk that wants to get people on Mars by 2026. That's, a really big order to fill.
Right.
But, if you're that ambitious, if you have that much money, it is very possible. But to kind of just back up a little bit, let's stay on the idea that what if we're in quarantine? Why is the
right.
universe so silent? But it might not be for long. What if we get this mass disclosure? What if we get another Phoenix Lights, right? That happened in
Right.
1997,
Yeah,
but at a more global scale. You do
Well,
have
now with like hundreds of thousands of cell phones all filming it at the same time, live on location, like
exactly.
yes,
It's so different than what it was 20 something 25 years ago, where you still had camcorders. I mean, I do apologize, but those were not the best quality for your average
No,
person.
yeah.
Mm.
No,
Now you
100%.
have social media as well, where you
Yep.
can go viral in an instant if you have the right content to push out there, either on purpose or by mistake.
Yeah.
So if we were to have another incident such as the Phoenix Lights, I think that's when we would stop considering our universe being so silent, and
There would
where
be a
we'll
huge wave socially. There would be a huge social wave they could
it would
push for
be.
sure. All over, like across all platforms too, and all ages. Like that
I
would
think
throw a lot of people for a loop.
I think the only downside to how much our technology is advanced with, especially with social media, is CGI and how easy it is to alter or fake videos.
That's also correct. So one thing to keep in mind, when I originally started my channel, it was looking at UFO sighting videos, right? Enhancing them, zooming them in, placing them back on YouTube, and allow people to make their own conclusions on if they believe it's a UFO or not. But you brought up a really good point, and that is right. CGI is more prominent now than ever. Anyone can get the software, the program, and create CGI stuff on their own. It's not that
Right.
hard. But what I keep in mind personally is, let's say someone's having a sighting, their expressions, and if they feel raw, that's when you know it's a genuine sighting. When they're like cussing, or like they're in shock, or you can hear like them being breathy. But I have seen UFO sighting videos, and there's air quotes there, and no one cares. No one's paying attention, but you're seeing a craft in the background. That's when you know it's fake, because people would not react in that way.
Right. And I know like Jaime Musan is his name. I know you and Jimmy have talked about him, and a lot of the stuff that he gets is from that, directly from the people sending him the footage. But then there's also the cases where somebody has altered decade-old, this happened yesterday kind of thing. So I know that that's kind of a recurring thing, especially being now that there's so much out there.
Yes, there is, and that's why it's so important to be knowledgeable on the technology that is constantly coming out, to understand the programs to improve our CGI. Because if we don't have that background knowledge, anything that we see can be like, oh, this is a genuine UFO sighting, this is legit, when it might not be. Maybe just technology is getting better and better each day, and we're just not catching up. So
Right.
I think that with this topic, and with any topic that you're interested in, doesn't even matter, it's important to have a good foundation and to stay up to date, because things are changing every single day, especially with our technology. If you
Right.
blink, you're gone. I mean, you're behind. So you really got to stay up to date on everything that you can.
Do you believe that it's possible? Well, I mean, I'm sure you do believe that it's possible, but like that maybe the government has hold of technology that is, a decade in the future compared to what we actually know of right now?
Well, we have had people come out from the military and the government that do state that the technology that we have today, or the airplanes or the jets, the weapons that we have, is about 20 years behind, right? Because then these new inventions, these new pieces of technology, I guess, would be in a sense still considered black projects. They're just not ready to come out to the public yet, or maybe it costs too much to create a bunch of them for it to be for commercial use. So I don't think that is a obscure question. I believe that it is very possible that the technology that we have today is decades behind what our scientists are working on for our future.
And that could be on a global level too. So like, I mean, there could be people flying around in, UFOs that are just humans, and we're just assuming that they're from another planet. So that's just as good of a possibility. All right. Does anybody have any? Yeah. Anybody have any more questions? Because I know you said about 40 minutes, and we're hitting that. So I don't want to hold you up as if I don't.
Thank you.
Can I ask one last question? Just before you go, Christina. I know technology is kind of advancing and stuff, and CGI and all these things make modern sightings more and more easily to fake. But like when you look through history in the ancient alien hypothesis, and you look at artwork and stuff that's been documented through history, that there's all these different accounts of spacecraft or aerial phenomenon appearing in old artworks and ancient pieces and stuff like that. Do you think there's any truth to this, or have they been doctored, do you believe?
There are countless cultures, books, scriptures that have talked about extraterrestrials. They classify them as gods, and I think that's why some people kind of brush off these pictures or these stories off, because like, oh, they're just gods, that's all they are, when in reality they could be extraterrestrials. It shows up in Sumer, it shows up in Egypt, shows up in Mexico, in the Mayan culture, it shows up in China, India, all Australia. It shows up all across the globe, that it would be nearly impossible to state they're all lying, all of them are fake, when you're having cultures that haven't spoken to each other right when these documents were written, these scriptures or these drawings were written, where these countries wouldn't have communication with each other. So I think that's what adds a lot of flavor, a lot of fun, a lot of excitement to this topic, is these possibilities that even though we have fantastic technology today, people have been having these sightings for hundreds of years. Now, I do have to get going. I do have a radio show that is streaming live right now with David Schrader from Coast to Coast AM and Darkness Radio, going to talk about Skinwalker Ranch. So I will catch you guys later.
Hey, no, I appreciate you coming on here as well. I'll have all your info in the description.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
Awesome. See you soon.
So, guys,
that woman is full of information. She was fucking awesome.
And on her show, she does a lot of research. She's had people from all over the world, from journalists or military personnel who've had eyewitness encounters, and she like questions everything when she goes into there and interviews them. So that's why I was like, oh sweet, let's get on. Same possible later on have some of those people on here as well.
Man, the ones that really fascinate me are like is the Commander Traver that's come out, and like you have high ranking, like really reliable sources coming out now, because like as Christina alluded to, like to a lot of people, these people that make the sightings or whatever, it's hard to really verify not just their motives, but like their their actions. Like it's like you look at them and they're not just their motives, but their what's the word I'm looking for, is the fucking
intentions.
No, but like the reliability, pretty much. There's another word I couldn't remember, but so when you look at someone like a Commander Fravor, that's like a well accredited naval officer, like there's no reason for him to lie. If anything, telling the story draws unnecessary attention to him, to his operations. When you have people like that, they don't need the attention or don't need to seek the attention, and they're coming out and they're drawing attention to things like the Tic Tac sightings, these technologies, these aircrafts that say that they can't pin down, that they're flying at incredible speeds, that they're making these kind of maneuvers that are like unknown or unachievable with our technologies. When stuff like that comes out, that's when I really perk up, because like apart from like a lot of the modern things, there are easy ways to explain them, or to even explain them away, even if you can't explain them in the first place. But like when you have someone like a Commander Fravor coming out when he's got no reason or no motive or no positives even for him coming out and making these kind of statements.
And that's like anything really. I mean, unless I think if it's a nobody that's coming out about it, there's more reason for that to be falsified. But when you're like a high up name, you're saying something that clearly does not benefit you, discussing it, I think there's more reality to that than some random person going on TikTok and saying, "Look at that UFO,"
yeah, exactly. Because like it seems like he's looking for the truth and not just for notice.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's a military officer that's up there, and he's like, "Well, I outflew my jet, I outflew my guys." And from a military standpoint, the one thing you'd want to know is how secure are you? How safe are your men? And because he couldn't come up with them answers, he decided, let's put it out in the public. Let's see if anybody has any answers, because we need to know what's in our
and to think that there's galaxies upon galaxies out there, and the Milky Way alone has several, like quarter million possible inhabitable planets just in our galaxy alone.
Yeah,
it's just, I think it's dumb not to think that there's something else, no matter what it is, just to be open-minded to the idea that there's something else out there, you know.
Oh man, even if it's just a mirror universe, that's like the Milky Way. Like if we finally got to Andromeda and it's just the Milky Way, but like a mirror, like an interdimensional, like that the galaxies in space, that when we travel through the universe, we're not actually traveling through space, we're traveling interdimensionally.
Reverse Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like maybe other galaxies aren't even galaxies, they're just different dimensions, and they're just mirroring our universe, and that's why we constantly see these spiral shapes. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe that's the thing, like, and aliens themselves are actually interdimensional beings. Like, it's like what Christina alluded to, that the greys themselves could be drones, and maybe they're actually being piloted like the way like a Predator drone is being piloted hundreds of miles away.
It's just like 3D printed.
Yeah, that's like they go into deep space. You know?
It's still possible though. Like the idea of the Greys just being a neutral like vessel. You know, like if you look at us as people and our energies, once we pass on, we just have these physical bodies laying there.
Imagine if Greys are ghosts.
Yeah, just ghosts. Well, and I kind of wanted to touch base because she's also investigated, or she's interviewed paranormal investigators and stuff as well. Most of her stuff has been around UFOs and aliens, so that's why I kind of wanted to keep the topic in case we do this in the future, which I'm sure we will with more extraterrestrials, because I feel like it's a topic that can really be dived into, even specific ones. You know, and
that's so many hypotheses wrapped around it. Like it's such a wide, overarching subject, isn't it?
Well, even like the missile, like for example, with the Russia and the nuclear weapons, like there's been a history of nuclear bases being shut down by UFOs. You know, just showing up and shutting them down.
And the increases in sightings after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings of 1945 by America, like so, like that's the same. It's like they seem to have these real, I don't know, like interest in our nuclear technology or reasons behind wanting to use it. Because if you look at the past 5 years, what's happening? A lot of UFO sightings. What's going on in Russia right now? You know what I mean? Like, so they're threatening nuclear. Like, so how do we not know that they're not us from the future, and they're coming back to crux times in humanity to try alter a future?
Going Terminator, going Terminator on us.
That sparks. That's where it goes different, though, dude. That's where the dimensions start popping up, dude.
Yeah,
so that's more and more and more and more and more.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, it's like there's every bit as much plausibility in them being interdimensional or time traveling creatures as there is to being interplanetary or interstellar.
Well, and
like
I've always found it interesting that, you know, possible like demons and ghosts and all that potentially being beings from other planets that are just disguising themselves as something that we are relatable to, you know, so that they're, whether it's to scare us or not to scare us, you know, because I don't necessarily believe there's a hell. I believe that our energies go somewhere after, but I don't think that there's hell. You know, I think we're living through a very painful, realistic time to experience things. And so if that's Roman, you're so high, man.
That's too deep. That's too deep, man.
We're living in hell pretty much.
But so like demons and like the shadow people and stuff like that, if they want to be deceived at, or for us to think of them as these negative energies, they're going to do that. At least, especially if they're that advanced.
What if sometimes or some places that the boundaries between our dimension and another dimension are weak, and that what we perceive to be ghosts are actually just different versions of the same person, but interdimensionally being witnessed by you? Like, so you're seeing them in our dimension, but they're like, when people say they see ghosts or shapes of humans, that they're actually just the same person. Like when they think they're being haunted, they're actually just seeing that person from another dimension. They just happen to breach.
It's a little bit off. Your dimension's just slightly skewed, and you're standing like 30 feet away from yourself, so you see it. What was that? But it's actually you.
Deja vu.
Tiny little bit. You know what I mean?
Like, you know what I mean? Like, imagine if we were already dead and this is hell. Like, to allude to your point, does it?
Yes.
Deep again. Too deep.
It's possible, man. I mean, that's a whole nother episode, man. I'm sure we can find somebody that specializes on that topic.
You better.
Dude,
Brimstoneologist.
Honestly, this Clash of the Casters has been such a great idea. So like, and doing these, like this episode went so well too. In a totally different vibe compared to the Flat Earth one. I mean, she actually does like some serious research, and David does off the wall experiments.
So smart, dude.
Yeah. Oh man, like that was the best thing about it. We were allowed to ask a question, and she answered it concisely.
Yes. She would point out specific things that she researched.
Exactly, like it's like the only issue really I had with David was that he saw every question as like defiance instead of just conversation.
Well, that's flat earthers in general. I feel like.
You know what I mean? Like I'd love to talk to that dude again. Like I just want to. I want to actually talk with him and not have him talk at us. I
don't think that's going to happen. Though.
Come on, Dave.
Not with him.
I want to ask him more about the puddle theory
that
he was trying to preach to me for a minute.
The puddle theory, is that what you said?
Yeah.
That we're just inside
one puddle, dude, that's around another. That we could be around other dimensions that were puddles, dude. It's like an alternate dimensions theory. It's a flat earther alternate dimension theory.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Flat dimensions.
So it's the multiverse of the flat Earth, is what it is.
I wonder if I wonder if any of them popped on here and watched this today. No, that's not right. Shouldn't have. Hey, Big Riz, I see all your comments on here, man. So I appreciate you watching. And yes, you're right. We probably did scare Bush out of here.
Oh my God. Yeah. Where did Baish go?
He said that he said he had to do an interview with somebody on Ibble. So I don't know.
It's such a lie. Nobody wants to talk to Baish but
us. Well, guys, this was fun though. I mean, I do enjoy this. I know that you need to get some sleep there, Vinny, man.
Before I do pass out, but do you believe in ancient aliens still?
Yes, I mean, I think there's an advanced race out there, then why would they have been here for like Egypt, the pyramids, all of that stuff, and hieroglyphics? You see them depicted, humans with animal faces, depicted as gods. Not necessarily. It's probably more of just a being from another dimension or another planet here helping us. I feel like if we were going to be invaded, I feel like if there was going to be an invasion, it already would have happened.
It's Sumer, and I think like the ancient kings of Sumer, like there's three of them, and they say their reign lasted over 200,000 years. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? There's like all these weird things, like in how they knew about planets and that would never be invisible to the naked eye, even back then and stuff.
And Nephilim, have you heard of the Nephilim? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Like
these giant beings.
Yeah, like the thing I always talk about is shared mythologies. Like if you look around the world and the different things that have been shared, and they're the ones that I believe they're oftentimes most true. So if you look at, say, visited from the sky, visited by gods, that's every mythology says that almost. Nearly all mythologies talk about dragons. Nearly all mythologies talk about floods.
We're on dragons now? Hold on.
You know what I mean? All those mythologies talk about giants.
I look down and I'm catching up now. Dragons?
There's plenty. I mean, I'm pretty sure even the Bible talks about dragons.
Exactly. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, why do they all talk about it if there's not some inkling of something there about all those different topics? And like gods from the sky, extraterrestrials.
Yes.
Giants, Nephilim.
Religion and science combined. I mean, if you really want to be that concise about it, I mean, why would it not just go hand in hand? I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe mythology or actually historical documents or historical records.
Yeah. I always thought it'd be really interesting Earth was just a science project for some alien, and they're like, hey, make a planet and make it inhabitable. And then some high school kid fucked up and created Earth, and then all this just spiraled out of hand.
We're like a marble in some giant fucking marble sack, like a Men in Black.
We're just their science project that they're bringing to school with them,
Yeah, there is that theory that these aliens came from a planet called, was it Nibiru?
Nibiru, yes. They're like gold, and they have this gold flitter around them and stuff.
Yeah, it's like Planet X or something. Isn't that what they call it? Or something
it's this Nibiru. You're right. It's called Nibiru. I think Planet X is the one that they found that could be inhabitable or something like that.
Oh, really? Yeah. Is that the one that's like just outside of our solar system or some shit or some?
But, and it mirrors our planet so well.
Yeah, exactly. Like a parallel dimension.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a
Maybe they're
different
looking at
product.
us and calling us Planet X.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
I think it's a great topic. So it's definitely something I want to do again, and possibly she has a co-host, Jimmy Church, who's like been out and done sightings and interviewed people as well, and actually gone to sightings with people. And I'd like to get him on if possible as well, because he's got like some serious. He's actually had a personal experience that happened. And he won't go into too many details about it because he says it was just too scary.
Yeah.
But he'd be a good one. And then maybe Bigfoot. I want to get into some.
Want to get Bigfoot
crazy.
on?
Bigfoot.
I just want to get into some
Bigfoot.
crazy topics,
Bigfoot.
man. The whole point
He
of
wants
this
to
is to do crazy
get
topics.
Bigfoot on, man. If we can hunt him down, get him on the show.
I'll just
Bigfoot.
He's just chilling out. Well, I just misunderstood all this time. I just want to hang out, but people are scared of me. They keep running away.
I followed an account on Instagram. There was a Bigfoot hand that opened different beers and then tried them and set them down, dude. And that was all the account did. And in different videos, everywhere, all out in the woods, all the fucking time, just this Bigfoot hand and fucking open it up and fucking drink the beer and set it down. And it was just best account fucking ever. It's entrancing. You watch them over and over and over and over. It's fucked up.
Man, if you find out that's the real Sasquatch, you're gonna be fucking sickened.
Oh yeah.
He's been just fucking with you, false flagging it all day.
I imagine him being some like redneck hillbilly that doesn't even speak English and has no teeth. So they're picking his toes the whole time.
Sasquatch O'Malley.
And honestly, I think it'd be really cool to get like some spirit mediums, just anything, any kind of crazy conspiracy theories that we can think of, and find somebody that really dives into that topic. Like this one went really well. And I'm thinking, once a month, once every other month doing this, because I love just doing something different than our individual shows,
Oh yeah, I'm down for sure. Yeah, definitely. Like I'll talk about anything, like especially if I have heads up for something I'm not too knowledgeable about. At least I can research it. But most shit I'm constantly looking up. You know me.
Of course.
This information.
Of course, man. Hey, before we get out of here, I want you to give a little shout out about your book. How's it going?
Book's going well. Release date going to be announced on April 1st. Couldn't help myself, April Fool's Day. Right now, the artwork's going well. Thea Marjorand, one of my illustrators, she starts the cover next month. We have the t-shirt order coming up soon. Got to hook up all the giveaway winners, and we're just going to be putting them up in our Etsy store, trying to expand our stock, expand the kind of variety we have on the Etsy store, because we've only really been kind of testing the waters at the moment. Now we're going to look to expand over the next 6 months and hopefully push and get bigger for the Kickstarter coming up and in the book release later on in the year and all these things. So hopefully right now it's going to go from strength to strength. I want to get the final draft in, all this kind of shit, but there's plenty to go, but we've covered a lot of ground. So hopefully we'll have more news in the next couple of weeks and see where we're at.
Wonderful, man. And Roman, I know you're working on some stuff too, right? I mean, it's probably a little hush hush.
I'm always working. I'm always working.
I've
got a notebook that I'm writing a story with.
I just imagine you in the kitchen at the golf club, just like writing and cooking.
One hand flipping burgers and
playing golf afterwards, dude. There writing.
The guy on the fryer's holding his joint for him.
That's good.
All right, guys. Again, another great episode. It's been great having you guys on. And until next time, everybody, we will see you around.
Much appreciate you, Dylan.
Yep. Have a good night, everybody.